All right, so I feel like a little bit of a fraud doing this presentation for all of you because it's about becoming a lion. It's about what does it mean to go to a Jesuit university. And I got to be dead honest with you, I had no idea what the heck a Jesuit even was when I was in high school. And I remember the actual day when I learned what it was. So I'm sitting in statistics class. I've decided to try and turn stats into a political philosophy class like I had done time and time and time again. And so I'm in this class and I'm trying to debate, and my professor, who's normally very patient, just loses it on me and is like, Furlong, I really, really hope that you go to a Jesuit university because otherwise it's a waste of all the God-given talent you have to annoy your teachers. And so he says this line to me and I hear annoy, which we get. But then I'm like, what the heck is Jesuit? Like, how offensive is it in terms of what he just said to me? What should I be doing in terms of that, right? So I'm like totally mind blown. I'm like, how insulting was this? And so I'm like, when I get home, I'm going to Google that. I'm going to see what the heck he is talking about and go from there. And so I go home, I Google it, and you got to remember, like, this is years ago, more years than I care to admit. So we don't have a dude like Pope Francis around kind of putting this very real face to folks who grew up where I grew up of what a Jesuit is. Right, so like many of you, I come from places outside of LA. I come from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Do we got any New Mexicans in the house? There never, ever is. Every single time I wait, and we're gonna have this beautiful connection the first time there's another New Mexican, but there never, ever is. So it goes. Anyone seen Breaking Bad? All right, you're gonna be the closest thing for me because you've actually seen my home city. So the Breaking Bad people, you're in my corner now. This is New Mexico. It's crazy. Our biggest city in the world, we talk about traffic in rush hour. Like, man, could you believe, like, the freeway slowed down to like 50 miles per hour for like 45 minutes between 5 and 5:45. This is the life I grew up in. This is what I knew. And so I go from that to this. Any Angelinos in the house? Woo! Have some pride. You guys just won the Stanley Cup. You should be really excited. There we go. If you haven't seen it, Aunt Kershaw, perfect game. If you haven't seen it, this is downtown LA. It's absolutely overwhelming the way the freeways just kind of intertwine together with one another. And so to go from middle of nowhere to this just hits me like really, really hard. And so I get to LMU, and I hate to say this because I know where you're at right now, but I hate this place. I hate it with an incredible, incredible passion. And so I'm sitting there and I'm upset and I'm like, I gotta fix this and I can't. Any Scandal fans? All right, there we go. So I'm like Olivia Pope. I'm like, I'm a fixer. I'm gonna handle this and take care of it. And I got no Olivia Pope skills. And so I finally call a teacher back home and I'm like, Miss Cummings, I hate this place. I'm out. I wanna transfer. And I'll never forget what she told me, and it's advice I'm gonna give you now in the situation that maybe you end up in my shoes. And I pour my heart out and she just sits there. And then there's this silence. And she says, okay. And I'm like, okay? Like, I just poured my heart out to you, and all you've got for me is okay? And she kind of has that like knowing chuckle on the other end of the line. And she says, you know, Patrick, all I got to tell you is really simple, and I hope you're in a space to hear it. If you transfer, that's fine, but I hope it's because you're running towards something and not away from something. Because whatever it is that you run away from, it will catch you. Whether you're at LMU, whether you're at New Mexico State, whether you're at Gonzaga, it will catch you. So it better be that you're running towards something. Otherwise, what's the point? And so I hang up the phone, and a lot of times we think about change as like, it happens like that. We just flip and we're done. And I don't think it's that way. I think it kind of creeped in a little bit where I was like, what am I gonna do? I haven't put my heart into this place. I haven't given this place a real chance. And so I made a promise to myself that day. I decided to do what Ira Glass from NPR kind of pushes people out to do. And it's this idea of stories. I believe the world is just full of stories. But here's the sad reality that we all need to process. If all you do is sit in your dorm room, your story is going to be what you read on the internet. It's going to be what you stream on Netflix. And personally, no matter how good Orange is the New Black is, or how much you love any other show, it's a lot more fun making our own stories, especially at a place like this. And so I decided to kind of go and to get out in the world. And when I did it, something really incredible happened. I began to realize that I just truly loved being connected to the world. I've got a student I work with, and he gave a speech back into the spring, and he said, you know, we've got it all wrong. We live in this society that says, show me, and then I'll believe. Show me that this exists, and then I'll believe it. And he's like, but we got it all wrong, man. Because the reality is, when I believe that there is goodness in the world, I see it everywhere. When I believe that God is in each and every single person, I find God in each and every single person, even when those whom society often tells us are godless. The guy you're looking at with the glasses, Father Greg Boyle, G, as he's known to most people in LA, he runs the largest anti-gang program in the world. He's a Jesuit priest. We're going to get to him a little bit later. So here's the lesson. What does it mean to be a lion? It's going to sound a little contradictory. It means to get off this bluff. It means to take the beauty of this bluff and bring it into the world that is in so much need of your positivity and in so much need of your talent. That's what it means to be at a Jesuit university, is to explore the world around us from our backyard in Pico Union or Watts to further places like Santiago, Chile, Quito, Ecuador, you name it. That's truly the essence of being a lion. And like I said, when you do that, this cool thing happens where you just feel connected to people. You feel this realization of like, man, there is love in the air, and damn, it feels good. And you love it. You're just excited by it. So we're going to take it back for a moment. This, St. Ignatius of Loyola, if you want to just do the cliff notes on it, he's the reason we're all sitting in this room today. Dude is a soldier. Back in the day, he's like the man's man, the most macho, ridiculous. Think of that stereotype of like what machismo is. That's Ignacio in Spain here. Gets hit by a cannonball. Knees are messed up. Becomes crippled. He's laying up in bed, and as my colleague says, he's asking for basically some dirty novels. He's like, give me 50 Shades of Grey. Literally what they're looking for. You wouldn't believe it. 50 Shades of Grey existed way back in the day. But instead, he gets My Life with the Saints. He gets a chance to read these other books, and this transformation happens where he says, man, what happens if I live my life for God? What happens if I live my life for education? What could happen? Now here's the thing, right before that, I'm looking into your faces and I got like at least most of you. And then I flip to this slide and you're like, oh God, that looks boring. What the heck is that? And so we lose sight of what this is. We call it in the Jesuit world a cannonball moment. Put another way, maybe this makes sense. It's a light bulb moment. It's the moment where something happens, where you have that little conversation amongst yourself and God, where you say, something's happening here and I want to change. Now, we often think light bulb moments have to happen like right away, but I don't think they do. It's basically a slow and gradual marinade. If anyone cooks here, you marinate a steak well, you're going to get the great flavors out of it. And so this could be your light bulb moment, or apparently, as Oprah says, your aha moment. Maybe you go down with me to Tijuana. We run a program out of campus ministry called De Colores. And you go down there and you meet a little boy who has no home. He's living in a shack, 5 people to 1 room, the size of this square that I've basically been standing in here. And you see that and you say to yourself, I don't know what I can do, but damn if I can't do something. That's not right. And so maybe you come back to LMU and you think and you think and you think and you decide, I'm going to build a home for that kid because I can, even though I don't know what I'm doing. And throughout the entire year, you relentlessly fundraise. You return to that community month after month. So maybe one day, like our friend Joaquin here, you can go down and help build that home and play with that child. For the first time, he runs around in a home that is his own, that is safe and secure. I come from a bias of social justice. That's what I work with here at LMU. I'm the Minister for Faith and Justice. My bias is that these are your aha moments, that you discover them with the people who are marginalized in our community. But if that's not you, that's okay. I still have to ask you, though, what are going to be your aha moments? We've been going on and on throughout orientation. What do you dream about? What do you hope for LMU to be, and what have been those moments for you already? Don't be afraid to put a name to them. It's such an important thing. Aha moments don't have to be hardcore serious all the time. My friend Kevin here talked about this as an aha moment. We took him down to Santiago, Chile for an immersion trip. This is a completo, for anyone that's a little unfamiliar with it. It's basically a hot dog with a ton of guacamole, a ton of mayo, ton of tomatoes, and some hot sauce poured on top of it. Sounds absolutely disgusting to me. Some people are like, yo, that's heavenly. Dude back there was just like wiping away some salvation right there, like, I like that. So this was an aha moment for Kevin. He was like, I love being abroad. But we have several aha moments on a trip. We talk in the Jesuit world of contemplatives in action. So what it basically means is we think you can walk and chew gum at the same time. We think you can come to LMU and have a blast. And just the fun of all fun will be here for you. And you're also going to have a chance to reflect. And you're going to have a chance to think about, who am I called to be? Whose am I called to be? And sometimes that happens in the midst of chaos. Contemplative in action is to say, the world doesn't stop. We don't just go away to a monastery. We live in the world, and once in a while we find God beckoning us into conversation, and we take some time to enjoy it. A lot of times, people find it in the church, and we hope you do. We've got some great church opportunities here for you. But on that same trip, we had a young woman who talked to me, and she said, you know, Pat, I hadn't been to Mass in like 12 years. And she goes, and we have this Mass that first day, and I don't know what happens, but I just start crying. She goes, and I couldn't figure it out. And then we have another Mass, the tomb, and I just start crying again. And she gets to this, and it's after our third Mass, the final Mass of this trip, and she's crying and she's telling me this story, but she's got that smile that I'm sure you all know, that smile of just inner peace. She goes, I don't know what all this means, but it feels so good to know God is here. Because for 12 years, I've forgotten what that felt like. And I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but it feels good. It doesn't have to happen instantaneously. It slowly comes upon us, and that's okay. Because when you do have these moments, when you do get yourself out of this bluff, when you say being at a Jesuit university means being in the world, you discover kinship. You discover that service is a great starting piece. As Father Greg says, it's the ballroom entryway. But the real ballroom is kinship. And you discover that kinship and you go after it. One more story from Tijuana. This here is my friend Coley. So Coley, when I first met her, struggled to say her name. She was about 5 years old. And when she finally got it out, I said, do you know why you're named Coley? And she told me, yeah. My parents told me that I'm named after a leader on De Colores. Coley is named after one of my best friends in the entire world, Coley. Coley went every single month to Tijuana when she was an LMU student. She formed relationships. And at the end of that, Coley's parents said, we love you like a daughter, so the least we can do is name our daughter after you. 2 weeks ago, I got to go back with Coley, and she met Coley for the first time. That can be your LMU experience, if you're open to it. Going back to Father Greg, he says this great line about what they do at Homeboy Industries, and I feel it's so important. He says, on our best of days, what we're doing is holding up a mirror to people and telling them, you're exactly what God had in mind when she created you. Think about that. You are exactly what God intended, what God had in mind when she created you. And on the very best of days, you watch as people realize that truth, and you watch the way they change. And it works great for guys who are former gang members, and it needs to be told to them to wash out the toxicity that they've got. But I've now worked in the university for a few years, and I got to tell you, we got to do the same thing here. And so just seeing you guys these last 2 days around campus, watching you move around, seeing your spirit, seeing your energy, I hope you believe me when I tell you that you are exactly what God had in mind when she created you. Because when you realize that to be true, the entire world benefits from it. A few years ago, my wife and I did something that most folks say is crazy, some folks say is great. We just quit our jobs, no game plan in mind whatsoever, and said we need to travel the world. It's what we need to do. We're just going to quit our jobs and travel. And so at one point, we end up in Indonesia, we end up in Bali, and it's a very Hindu place. And when you go to Bali, it's the most beautiful thing where even just walking into like a convenience store, people meet you and they greet you with their hands together like this, and they tell you namaste. Namaste has several interpretations, but the one I love the most is that there's a spirit, a God within me, and that divine recognizes the divine within you. Take a moment and think about this, you guys. Last week we had another school shooting. This is 74 school shootings since Sandy Hook Elementary, 18 months ago. for anyone that cares to keep count. 74 shootings in 18 months at schools. Now, we're not going to be able to change that over time, and there's a ton of issues that go into that. But imagine if for just one moment, all of us took this idea, this philosophy, and said, we're going to live it. That we're going to wake up, and even the people that annoy the hell out of us, we are going to look them in the eyes, and we're going to say that I know God is in there. Because God within me is recognizing the God within you. How much different would our world be? How much more compassionate, sympathetic, loving, fun would our world be if we lived that way? And why don't we start? It's not that hard. It all comes down to this. Pedro Arrupe, the former superior general of the Jesuits, says nothing is more practical than finding God. That is to say, than falling in love in a quite absolute and final way. What you're in love with will seize your imagination. It will determine what gets you out of bed in the morning. And he goes on and he says, so fall in love and stay in love. If you have not already, you will fall in love with this bluff. We call these our Instagram moments, right? You're going to be walking along one day to class, running late, and you're going to see the sky doing all these weird things, and you're going to be like, oh my, the perfect Instagram moment just unfolded itself. My iPhone is going to look like a high-res camera right here. And you're going to take that photo, and half the people in this room will know what I'm talking about. It's that you're going to see that photo on the other side because you're not there, and they're like, oh, I'm so jealous. I really, really like that photo. I wish I was there, so I have to like it. And so it goes on and on and on because we have these beautiful moments. There were like 2 guilty smiles over here of like, I know exactly what you're talking about. Thank you. I acknowledge that. So this is easy to fall in love with. You're going to do it. If you don't, I'll be surprised. The harder question is what doors are going to open that you should follow to find your love, to find your passion at being at a Jesuit university. And so I hope to God you take some great opportunities. I hope many of you will know what it's like to go to Anne Frank's house and then to sit on a canal in Venice and journal in your own journal about what it was like to go into this house where you read these journal entries from Anne when she was a child. I hope you take that opportunity. I told you earlier, my bias is in social justice. And so I really hope you take advantage of the opportunities we present at LMU and get out into the world and discover this connectivity that exists there with everyone. But more than anything, no matter what you do, I hope you do what former business professor Fred Kiesner would talk about. And that's that I hope you soar. It's a cheesy little thing, but it's an easy thing to remember. And I love that I learned it in a business class. I was like, where was this guy when I was in stats trying to bring philosophy in there? He said, soar means to go and sit on a rock. From time to time to just unplug from our electronics, from the busyness, from the clubs, the homework, and soar. And think about your life and think about what's going on and what means the world to you. And so I'm going to leave you with a final story, and it's about my best friend Mike. Mike actually just got married this Saturday, and we were reminiscing about this, and it made me realize just how special he is. So Mike and I trained for the LA Marathon together when we were students back in 2006. We got a group of guys together and decided we're going to run 26.2 miles for anyone who's unaware of a marathon. Now, if you're looking at me and you're looking at Mike, you're going to realize one thing. Neither of us exactly have like runner's physique going on here. You don't look at me and say, that fool runs 26.2 miles, no doubt. Right? You just don't. And Mike was the same way. And so when Mike would say, hey, I'm going to run this marathon, people would say, oh, have you ran before? And he's like, yeah, I did that like presidential fitness test thing in high school. I'm set. And they're like, wasn't that a mile? And he's like, yeah, but I've ran a mile, so I can run 26. And they'd be like, wait, people told me you got a heart condition. You take heart meds. Yeah, but I checked with my doctor. We can do this. So Mike sets out to run the marathon. Do I have any runners in the house? Runners, give me some love. There we go. I see some hands. All right, so my runners can attest to this. Some days you're on, and some days it just ain't your day. And the worst thing that can happen is ain't your day to be marathon day. And so we get to marathon day where Mike's been training for over a year, and it ain't his day. So at mile 6, he's hurting. He's got pain across his face like no other. It's just not his day. Our friend Diego in the white shirt over here had biked the LA Marathon earlier in the day. Diego is a self-proclaimed hater of running. absolutely hates running, thinks it's the most stupid exercise in the world, refuses to participate in it. He sees Mike Hurton, who's one of his best friends, and he says, I'm going to hop in and run with him till he gets better, till he moves through this pain. Mike never moved through the pain, stayed with him the entire time. And so Diego ran the final 20 miles of the LA Marathon, despite not having trained for it, despite having exerted himself earlier in the day. And when he finished, you asked him, what were you thinking? And he looked at you like you were the stupid one. And he said, my boy needed me. What was I supposed to do? I was going to run it. And so the message is twofold for you. You can do whatever you want to do at this place. Whatever you want to do. If only you're willing to take a few risks and chase that life that you know you can have. But the second piece, if you haven't learned it yet, I hope you learn it soon, is you cannot do it without community. It's a group of people that come together and make it happen. It's a group of people who will have your back in the weak moments and who will be there to celebrate the incredible highs for you. This is what it means to be a lion. Are you going to be brave enough to pursue it? Thank you, guys.